One way for public health officials to track the spread of the coronavirus is through contact tracing, which literally means tracking down all the people an infected person came into contact with in the days before they got sick. Tonight, Facebook is unveiling county-by-county maps of people with coronavirus symptoms, with the tech giant set to begin running global surveys this week. Other Silicon Valley heavyweights like Google and Apple are working together to form an app that uses Bluetooth technology to help track people who come into contact with someone who's been infected. A person who has tested positive with COVID-19 can voluntarily sign up with a tracking app, and if their phone comes into contact with someone else who has the app, that person is then alerted. The identities of the people are supposedly kept anonymous. Still, it's drawing privacy concerns across the political divide. And joining me now with more on those concerns and how this new technology will work is Sarah Collins, Policy Counsel with the Public Knowledge Group in Washington. Sarah, good to see you. Facebook,
Thanks.
Apple, and Google are all working on tracking the coronavirus. The former two have cleared the technology hurdle to make sure it works on both of their operating systems. But what have the companies done to ensure users' privacy when they sign up?
So they've done a couple of things if you're talking about the contact tracing app. The first thing is all the data is kept on your phone. So you're not sharing it with Google or Apple, and you're not sharing it with your with whoever is providing the app, whether it's a public health authority or a university or whoever is creating it. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, as you mentioned, they keep your identity secret. So as you come into contact with other people with the app, they don't get your information. Their phone just records a string of numbers, and your phone remembers what string of numbers that it created. And if you test positive for COVID-19, you can push out that string of numbers so everyone else's phone can check against that. Again, the idea is you don't have to share any more data than you absolutely have to do this sort of work.
Sarah, you wrote an article in which you said it isn't hard to see a world in which using these applications becomes mandatory or functionally mandatory. Do you really see the government forcing this?
Well, so there can be a couple of things. As we see pressure to reopen, some governments, and including our own, could see this as a way to more quickly reopen if they can just know who's coming into contact with who. So what could happen, even if it's not mandatory, there could be employers who say you can't come to work unless you show your app, or grocery stores who do the same thing, or maybe you can't get benefits, like the unemployment benefits, unless you can prove you have that app. So even if it's not from on high, you must download this app, it can become kind of almost impossible to live your life without doing that. And we want to protect against that. It should be voluntary, and people should want to do it because the government has demonstrated that we're going to keep your data safe. It's only going to be used for contact tracing, and we're not going to do other things with it.
Big assurances for sure. Quickly, a two-part question. How do we prevent this from becoming what some fear, becoming a dystopian surveillance device? And then could a country use this technology for nefarious surveillance purposes?
So I'm going to start with your first question. So how to prevent this from becoming some dystopian nightmare is that there needs to be controls on how the data is used. And there should be three basic controls that we're seeing. One, only collect data that's absolutely necessary. Two, only use the data for what you say you're going to use it for, and not share it with anyone else. And then three, delete it once it's done. The problem here is we don't have a federal privacy law, so this all has to come from written agreements with tech companies, with application developers, with governments. What we'd much rather see is these principles enshrined in law. And then the second question of if this could be used for nefarious purposes, obviously, any sort of surveillance technology can be leveraged for bad reasons. But the good thing about Bluetooth contact tracing is it doesn't track where you've been, only what other Bluetooth signals you've come into contact with. So this is a less useful way of tracking people's movements. Not that it couldn't be used for this sort of work, and it couldn't be leveraged in this way. It just is much more difficult than, let's say, someone tracking you via your GPS.
All right, Sarah Collins with Public Knowledge, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.